In this video, we're going to go over the different pay rate models that you'll see in work orders on Field Nation. The pay rate model just determines what the assigned service provider is paid by the buyer for labor. The first example we'll see here is called a fixed rate work order. You can see next to the word pay it says fixed, and then below it says $80 with an approximate hours to complete. The approximate hours to complete is truly only an estimate set by the buyer based on previous jobs. It's meant to give you a loose idea of how long it might take. However, the pay rate does not change based on how long it does take. That means that there's a risk and a reward associated with accepting a fixed rate work order. If you were able to get the work done faster than the approximate hours to complete, you still get the full fixed rate. If it does take longer than the approximate hours to complete, then you still only get the fixed rate. You are not compensated for that extra time with this pay rate. Most important takeaway when accepting a fixed rate is to just know that the rate is not tied to your time on site. It's tied only to completion of the scope. The next pay rate model we'll go over is the hourly rate work order. The assigned service provider is compensated per hour on site up to or at the maximum hours or max hours shown here that is set by the buyer. Pay for the first 1 to 60 minutes would round up to the first full hour. However, after the first full hour, it is calculated by the minute. You'll also see here that buyers will include a max hours, meaning that is where the pay is capped. So for example, this work order is capped at 2 hours. Since it has a 2-hour max, the buyer will also include an estimated labor hours, which is intended to correlate with the pay, meaning based on previous jobs like this, it's only taken 2 hours. That's why there's a 2-hour max, and that's why there is a 2-hour estimate. The next pay rate we'll look at is called per device. Here in this example, you'll see that there are 30 devices that need to be worked on, and they are paying $30 per device. Then they calculate the total estimate, as well as include an estimated labor hours for this job. Now, this will depend on the scope of work, what they determine one device to mean, whether that's installation, servicing, troubleshooting, assembling. It all depends on the buyer and their scope of work. In this example, let's say you were only able to do 10 devices, then you would only be paid for those 10. The 30 devices is the number of devices estimated to be on site. It may not be exact. The important takeaway with per device work orders is that it's basically like a fixed rate in the sense that you are paid per device regardless of the amount of time that it takes. It may take 2 trips, it may take 1. Either way, you're paid in the end based on how many of the devices you are able to complete. Here is an example of a blended rate work order. The assigned service provider is compensated at a rate that is a combination of both fixed and hourly. This allows for one fixed rate to cover the first few hours, and then sets an hourly rate to cover the additional hours logged after that, up to the max hours, similar to an hourly work order. This example we see of a blended rate here shows $120 fixed for the first 2 hours, and then $50 per hour after that, up to 1 additional hour. This means the provider assigned to this work order would be paid a minimum of $120 for 2 hours or less on site, and a maximum of $170 for 3 hours or more. Of course, this is just one example of a blended rate. You'll see all kinds of variations of the fixed and hourly combination, but just keep in mind that max hours does also cap the pay on these. The next pay rate we'll talk about is called a multi-site. Here's what it looks like on the list of available work. Instead of a location, you'll just see the words multi-site. These work orders are paid per site. You probably won't see these very often, but they are out there. The work order will show the address for each location, and similar to a per device work order, you are paid per completed site. You are not paid based on the time it takes. This covers all the pay rate models that you'll see on Field Nation. Remember, the pay rate only covers the labor, does not include expenses like materials or travel. And providers have the option to ask for a different pay rate, either upon assignment through a counteroffer request or after assignment through a pay change request. Either way, it requires a buyer agreement. Once it's agreed, it does lock in that new rate, and you're ready to go.